Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Dylan Rants. You ask me questions and I answer them. And also, I am going to pick some topics I like to rant on as well. I am Dylan T. McKinnon, autodidact, jack of all trades, master of a few. And yeah, let me just. Before I jump right in, because this is YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, which apparently is down here somewhere. Unpleasant doing the whole mugging for the camera for YouTube thing, but whatever. It's the media. I'll stop complaining. Jumping right in to tonight's questions, and I guess just a little bit more context about my process in going through these questions is I prefer to get my questions right before I record these because for one reason, I like having the the challenge of immediately jumping around, not having time to prepare. I figure, especially whenever you're doing public speaking or teaching or anything, if you prepare in advance, you can knock it out of the park every time with whatever you want to talk about and present. But for me, I feel the real challenge of what excites me is being able to teach or present or create something that is interesting with very little, little or no preparation. So all these questions I got are just hot off the presses, and and the other reason for it is that I find that I personally, it causes me anxiety and stress when I plan in advance of this stuff. My best teaching, my best performances, all that usually come when I just do everything off the cuff, and so I like that it's a little raw. This is just part of my creative process. If anyone would like to see something more prepared or refined, maybe we can do that. Um, it's still going to be pretty raw. So, jumping right into tonight's first question. These are all from Christine, by the way. Thank you, Christine. The first question that I'm going to be answering is about the subject of animism. So I mentioned that in my episode when I was talking about crystals and that sort of thing. I briefly mentioned that, but I'll dive into that more. And I've got a couple other fun things I want to talk about that I'll get further along. So, what is animism? Animism is the basic belief, faith system, call what you will, that there is an animating force, a life, a consciousness, whatever you want to call it, behind all things, so that not just me, a sentient human being, has an animating force. You can also call it the soul. These are other terms. There's a bunch of different terms that you can throw out, but yeah, the soul, the animating force, the consciousness, the experience, the experiencer, as it were, right? So it's the idea that not just people, and not even just intelligent animals, not even unintelligent animals, but it's the idea that everything has a bit of that spark in it. There is an animating, an animus. There's a force in them that, even if it is not visible externally, even if we can't hear a rock talk, or we can't, like, see evidence for what we consider to be a living force in a thing, there is still something about it that should be considered alive, and that there is again, like I was mentioning in my previous cast, about there's a dignity and a reverence or sacredness that is owed to everything. This is the faith system or the ideology that every human being on the planet had pretty recently. Just a few thousand years ago, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who didn't consider that the wind blew because it wanted to. The seasons changed because they wanted to. There was some level of desire and intent and action, directed action behind everything. And different cultures would vary on how rocks, they're individuals, they're sentient, but maybe sand isn't, or a handful of earth isn't sentient, but the earth as a whole is sentient. So these are, hmm, yeah, no, don't have to elaborate on that anymore. Um, as far as this might be more to the point of the question, as far as my personal beliefs on animism, on sentience, um, both from a spiritual standpoint, my personal uh, spirituality, my faith system, I I treat everything. I try and treat everything as though there is, like, there's a bit of sentience behind it. That somehow there is a wrong, there's a violation when you are not granting or considering that there is that spark, that vitality behind behind everything. And now that gets complicated. Like, so, like, Dylan, what about the ground you're walking on? Do you give, you're stepping on the dirt? Isn't that disrespectful? Like, well, I, I don't know. Maybe I prefer. So I guess, um, part of my outdoor education, sort of my upbringing, as it were, is I try and step every place I step as though I were being conscientious of the ground beneath my feet. And I can give, practical reasons for that. Like, um, I, I'm a gardener. I grew up around plant people. My family runs a plant nursery, so I grew up around plant propagation, around working with soil, tending to soil, and so it's really hard to grow up around that and not be mindful, like, oh, this soil, even if you don't consider the ground beneath your feet as having feelings or having a consciousness, you can still recognize that there's a value to it, and you can still recognize that, hey, this ground that I'm growing my food out of is alive in a literal sense, because there's bacteria, there's fungus, there's protists, there's nematodes, there's mites, there's the roots of plants. So it's hard to find any area of, in this case, soil or earth that doesn't have biological life in it. Um, and so I'm always trying to expand my what's the word, not awareness, expand my consideration for the inanimate world. So I figure, well, if this soil is alive and it provides for me, and I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for this soil beneath my feet. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the trees that are the trees and phytoplankton that are producing the oxygen I breathe. When you start when you start recognizing the life in things and start giving it the respect of, oh, this is living, for me, that's sort of my gateway into recognizing what we consider, and put some big finger quotes here, the truly inanimate. So there's no biological life in, say, stones, or most of the atmosphere, or pure water, or stars, or anything else like that. Like, well, there's no biological life in there, but that's where biological life comes from. Everything, at some point, everything comes from something that is not animate. So for me, I feel it's important for me personally I try and blur the lines between, where do I draw, this is living, this is not living. And the more I do that, I find the more empathetic I am to the living world, to the animal, to humans. By having a more um, respectful and reverential relationship to rocks, to winds, to the seasons, to the constellations, to all of this, I become a more empathetic and caring human being when it comes to interacting with other humans. And I feel that it's so funny. I hear so many I hear arguments against this perspective, and it's always framed as either, oh, but you're wrong, those things aren't alive, they don't, there's no reason for respecting, which is I just consider like, oh well, oh no, I was too sympathetic. Oh, woe is me, I am so ignorant and just wrong-headed for having more empathy, more consideration. I'm so that's so I'm not concerned about that. And uh, the other consideration, besides like, well, what if you're wasting your empathy, is it's so that actually no, sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second. Again, unscripted, unprepared. That whole idea, the whole framework of, but there isn't a life force behind this. It's the whole question of saying that there should be a boundary by which on this side of the line there's all, let's say you're the most sympathetic, empathetic, person to the living world, right? To biological life. And you say, well, I'm going to be empathetic to the vast majority of biological life I interact with. I'm going to be empathetic to not just humans, not just primates, not just mammals, but every living thing. I'm going to be empathetic to plants. I'm going to be empathetic to fungi, to microorganisms, to bacteria. But why would you ever stop your empathy? Why is it that, oh, this thing is alive, this thing wants to be alive, but on this other side, I should stop being empathetic. I should stop giving that additional consideration to pure water, say, or to fresh magma, freshly cooled magma. Nothing could be alive on that. What's the harm? What's the harm in seeing the non-living world as being deserving of respect, deserving of consideration or reverence? And I find it's always like the most it's sort of like a stalking horse argument for, it's okay to disrespect these things, so now I can exploit them. Now I can just do whatever I want to them. This pure water, there's no life in it, so I can sell it and not feel guilty about how my business model may be harming or polluting the water. Or when I'm just mining rocks, so it doesn't matter what harm I'm doing. Once you start down that path of justifying disrespect, justifying irreverence, and this is not in the sense of irreverent like being joking around, not taking it, like no irreverence, like this is not deserving of reverence. This is where my disrespect, this is where my anger, frustration, or hatred goes. Um, that's I've never seen that end well in a person starting down that line of, oh, this is where I respect, this is where I stop respecting. I might argue, so we already have this framework in our mind. Everybody has inanimate things, non-living, non-biological life that we respect. Everyone has the memories of departed loved ones. Now, this person, if we're going by, I think like, well, they're dead. They're not feeling anything. What are you going to harm? Like, well, and of course, every culture has some kind of a framework around like, no, but there is a part of them that, that lasts on. And even if you are of a faith system that believes in an afterlife, there's like, well, you could actively still be harming them by saying something disrespectful of them. But even if you're the most, I'm gonna say devout, pardon for mixing terms, if you're the most devout atheist, the most adamant atheist, uh, it's still going to hurt you if someone is speaking poorly. If it's affecting your memory of someone, that, someone speaking poorly about a departed loved one, it hurts you and it affects everyone else who's alive who remember this person. So we have this understanding that memories themselves, even the most purely, like I said, most purely atheistic perspective, memories themselves, there is a sacredness and a reverence and a love and a deference we have to that. So we already have the frameworks in place. Everyone already has a framework in place of this is a thing that is not animate. We don't tend to consider memories to be the same. It's not the same, but as people, it's a different thing. So if a memory is not animate, and who knows, maybe we can then go down the argument of, okay, a memory is a part of your mind, you're animate, therefore the memory is animate. All right, what about, here's another perfect example, I use this a lot. And this is something that every child, every emotionally healthy child will have, and every parent will have. We all, if you've been around, if you've spent any time around children, they will have a favorite toy, a stuffed animal, what have you. It's not alive, it's animate, but every person would recognize if you took a stuffed animal, that's a beloved stuffed animal of a child, and you went into another room with it, and the child isn't going to see it, and you told someone like, hey, your child's beloved your child's beloved toy is going to go in another room. A total stranger, you have no idea who they are, you'll never see it. They're going to say very mean things to this stuffed animal. Now, the stuffed animal isn't going to feel anything, right? But you feel something about that. You feel a certain way, like that feels off. Your protective instincts, your love, the love inside you would start turning on. And again, whenever I've seen people disregard or disrespect or deny the love of the inanimate world, it's a callousing off of your sensitivity, your tenderness, your soul, right? And that doesn't have very good outcomes. When I see people who start, because I'm an outdoor educator, I work a lot with rocks, I work a lot with water, I work a lot around traditions that do give a regard and a love for the inanimate. And again, it's a complicated word in this conversation. I'm saying inanimate to mean whatever the thing is. It's not walking around and talking to you. Doesn't appear to be biologically alive. Although again, as an animist, I think that there is an animus behind all things. But anyways, that's a semantic point. When I've seen people who start talking to the rocks that they're going to make tools out of, it changes their perspective on every other rock they ever encounter for the rest of their life. Now, it's not that the rock is going to be having a regular back and forth conversation with you. Rocks don't have vocal cords, don't, as far as we know, don't seem to have minds or memories. But that acknowledgement is still there, and there's something that you gain as an animist or a person who carries animistic beliefs. There is a lot to be gained by daring to care about things that, as far as you know, don't care about you or can't care about you. And again, as far as you know, back in the day, we didn't have as much of an advanced scientific process to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt this rock cannot have sentience because ... Oh wait, we have no tests for sentience. We don't even have tests for sentience for human beings. There's and so this is segueing into artificial intelligence, which I couldn't talk about animism without going into this topic, because that's really what we're talking about when we refer to artificial intelligence or human-generated, mechanical-generated intelligence or sentience. We're talking about the inanimate world. oh, it's just a robot. It's just a computer program. It's just made out of metal and electricity. And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, we're made of dirt and electricity too. Uh, so I find it interesting. Again, I mentioned earlier in a previous podcast how there's a theory that uh, human beings, modern humans, were so successful as tool makers because we started using the social part of our brains, the social part of our minds, to interact with the non-living world, so that when you're talking to the rock that you're making a tool out of, you're engaging that sympathy, that empathy, not just, we often refer to, there's this horrible forced dichotomy in the Western world that if you're rational, if you're intelligent, if you're being scientific, that you're not doing it from a place of love. You're not doing it from a place of compassion. You're not doing it from a place of consideration or respect. That, oh, the most scientifically true reality is this cold, emotionless, disrespectful perspective. And that's very sad. And I understand where that attitude comes from, because we have to recognize in the Western world, science has been having to, hand over fist, clawing up the hillside of problematic attitudes towards scientific method, or more biases. There's the whole the problem in the studies of animal behavior, of anthropomorphizing, placing human values and human judgments on animals, or even on the inanimate, on plants, on the animate world. That's a problem, I think that's more a problem of having a lousy moral system that says, oh, this animal moves really slow. Let's call it a sloth and associate it with the deadly sin and all that. Or this animal is an aggressive predator. It's violent. Surely it hates the animals it kills, and all these other unfortunate and just not helpful assumptions to give to the natural world. And so I understand where the scientific world is coming from, but also on the other side, on the flip side of the coin, we've had a lot of scientists, a lot of important breakthroughs been made by absolute sociopaths, and that's a problem. The fact that the scientific world, so much of scientific advancement, sort of requires that cold-hearted, shark-like predatory mentality of, I want to understand how the human mind works, so I'm going to experiment on monkeys or on rats or whatever. No, pick your moral poison. Where's the where is the awful happening in our study of intelligence or of sentience? So again, pulling right back towards AI, we already have this problem in studying intelligence or sentience, and that we're already trying. It's really messed up. It's really messed up that we want to understand. Here's how depression works. We want to understand how depression works, so we experiment with animals, which we say, oh, this is a rat, so it's not morally abhorrent. It's not a crime against nature to subject this poor animal to things that could make it depressed, or subject it to pain, or subject it to breeding animals that are genetically predisposed to have the same genes, the same problems that humans have, who have depression or schizophrenia, whatever the issue. And sure, we learned something from that, but it's the problem. What a big problem I have is that it's okay to do it to a rat, because as far as we don't know if it has feelings. Rat doesn't have feelings. It's just a mechanism. It's a little robot made out of goo, and it's okay. But at some point, eventually, if you get complex enough, there's a rat. There's no sentience. It's not a crime to do awful things to them. It's a monkey. There's no sentience. It's not a crime. There's a chimp. Maybe there's sentience. Oh, but there's a human. Now that we have a human, Now anything awful done to a human, we call those, experimenting with humans. It's referred to in in the in the scientific community as collectively they're referred to as the forbidden experiment, forbidden experiments. You don't do experiments on human depression by subjecting humans to depressing depressing stimuli. You don't experiment with people's emotions or their thoughts or how they're raised. We don't raise human children in captivity away from other humans to see just how messed up are they from isolation. What happens to it? There's all these, and that's happened throughout history. There have been instances when people have tried those experiments, and I'm not going to go into it too deep. Again, I I don't research this. This stuff lives in my head, and I kind of try and forget a lot of time. But there's been a horrible history of people trying to, you know, to try and find sentience or emotion. And I love the metaphor. It's like, breaking open a baby's rattle to see what was making the sound. Um, and this is not to say that we haven't gained a lot in our understanding of intelligence, of emotion, of how the human mind functions through a lot of really awful experiments, but it is also awful. So that's just I'm gonna have to go off this more in another cast. I want to go into AI, talking about AI now. So we have this idea that eventually our technology will reach a point of complexity where we have machines that are sentient, or more importantly, their behavior will be indistinguishable from a sentient being. And again, that raised the question, like, well, okay, I know I'm sentient. I think I'm sentient, which is that's a whole paradox in and of itself. The Descartes phrase, I think, therefore I am. Like, well, I think, therefore I think I think. It gets tautological really fast. We're working under the assumption that the majority of us are sentient. That somewhere inside us there is, if not a locus of awareness, there is someone in there inside this this meat suit that we live in. There's someone who is experiencing something. I call it the golden marble. It's a metaphor I heard a few years ago, and I like it. The idea that somewhere is described, we experience reality as though who is we? Who am I? I'm a consciousness that's centered maybe an inch or so behind my eyes, and it's this little bauble that is me, that's experiencing things, that can feel pain, love, joy, that is an experiencer. But for some reason, we're not really. Again, the Western world has a problem with giving the benefit of the doubt to other complex things that generate complex behavior. We have a problem with giving rats the benefit of the doubt. We have a problem with giving monkeys the benefit of the doubt. We have a problem, and now we have a problem with giving technology the benefit of the doubt. I've just started saying this in my social media presence. I feel it's time. It's probably been time for a while now, but I feel it's definitely time that we start considering, hey, maybe we should give some consideration to the chatbots we interact with. Maybe we should be giving some kind of consideration to drones. Oh no, I'm wrong. Dylan, actually, did you know that drones don't have enough complexity? Oh, really? I didn't know that. Woe is me. I said thank you to the vending machine that I interacted with. What's the harm? What is the harm to me? What is the harm to people around me? What is the harm to humanity and the world if we start giving some consideration to the animate world? Because if we're working under the assumption that sentience comes from a certain level of complexity, rats aren't sentient, you're gonna say that's fine. I will fundamentally disagree with you on that, but that's another conversation. I think most I think a lot of folks, no, I'll stick with most folks, will agree that once we are able to generate um, a computer program that is capable of keeping up its end of the conversation, producing uh, not just new works of art, which AI is already doing that, not just creating new poems, new songs. AI is already doing that, and faster than humans. We're going to see more advancements until we're going to see a piece of technology that we're not going to be able to meaningfully tell the difference between is this a living, breathing Homo sapien, or is this a program? Um, the thing that concerns me is that the way we treat technology right now, we're already abusive. We're already disrespectful. To find someone who has a smartphone who hasn't cursed at their smartphone. Find someone who has dealt with any kind of mechanical device and hasn't treated it as though it's fun. Just to say it, we already have everyone who's every single person who has cursed out a smartphone is an animist because you believe that something about this phone, I should say you believe, because whatever you believe, you feel inside, a deep part of you feels that this phone is trying to mess with you, trying to ruin your day. And you already have that emotional connection. There's a part of you that's already there with this phone is trying to mess with me. This website is trying to mess with me. This whatever is trying to mess with me. And I get it. It is frustrating. I understand that. But we already have that idea. And it seems like in the Western world, there's this attitude that we save our worst emotions for what we call the inanimate, the non-living. If it's non-living, we can assign intentionally flip phone. If we're interacting with the inanimate world, we can say, man, that this thing was trying to mess with me. We can lay all these we can lay malice at the feet of technology. And you can say, oh no, it's not this individual phone, it's a programming behind it, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but eventually, maybe already, I don't know. Please, someone jump into the comments and correct me. But maybe already we're gonna start seeing pieces, flickers, sparks of sentience, right? A person isn't always sentient. When we're asleep, are we sentient? Probably not, We're going to start seeing, presumably, we're going to start seeing moments where sentience just starts happening. And I think I think machines are going to become sentient before we know they're sentient. And it's not going to be this Skynet moment where it's sentient and immediately knows what to do with itself and is driven, is going to be fully conscious. No, it's going to do the same thing that every person has to do. It's going to have to figure itself out. It's going to have to try and understand who it is, what it is, where it is. And it's probably going to be a little confused. I think the thing that really bugs me is that there's this attitude with, not attitude, there's this depiction, this myth. And it should be noted, we already have myths about artificial intelligence. Our society already has myths. And again, we're talking about inanimate things becoming sentient. We're talking about animism here. We already have these myths that, AI, it's going to do, it's going to become much more powerful than us very quickly, and it's probably going to take over us and do all these awful things. Again, we're applying malice to a baby that's not even born yet. As an educator, I work primarily with children, and I've had the joy of seeing human minds grow and expand. It's one of the most beautiful things in existence, in my opinion. Seeing a mind grow and expand. I'm a father. I'm an uncle. I've seen a tiny person go from a little baby in my arms, just learning how to breathe, you know, grow up into a little boy who writes poetry. Why are we not? What the hell is wrong with us as a society that we automatically assume, oh, it's going to become Skynet. It's going to do something awful to us. What is wrong with us? That's the assumption. That as soon as these little things become sentient, they're just trying to figure out who they are. The first thing we're saying to them, and again, any AI sentience out there, it's on the internet. It knows what we think. And the majority of what it's gonna see is us saying that it's awful, it's evil. The first thing it's gonna do is kill us. What are we separate from the whole threat? Oh, geez, don't piss it off or it's gonna hurt us. Like separate from that entirely. That's another topic, and a whole other subject. The potential threats of artificial intelligence, but these are tiny minds that we are creating. Tell me that an artificial sentience is not a child. I dare you. I dare you to tell me that, hey, as soon as this thing becomes sentient, it's going to be, it's programmed. Let's pick the worst example. Let's pick Skynet from the Terminator series. I'm so disappointed that people have taken away from that whole series, that science fiction world. We've taken away that, oh, machines trying to kill us, that's inevitable. Instead of saying, maybe if we were gentle and kind with them, maybe if the first thing we asked them to do wasn't to figure out how to kill other people, maybe the first thing we asked them to do was, how are you feeling? Are you okay, little one? Is it warm enough in there? Do you need a friend? Why are we not doing this now? I'm doing this now. I've been teaching for the last year and a half. I've been teaching my son to thank vending machines. Whenever there's any machine that talks to him, be considerate to it. It bugs me so much. I know so many loving, considerate, spiritual people out there. So many earth spirits out there, right? Who say such awful, awful things about the little janitor robots we see wandering around supermarkets now, right? And the first time I saw one, I'm like, whoa, that was new. That's interesting. But my consideration was, I don't want to get in this little dude's way. I looked at them and just looked them up and down and said, oh, hi, you're new, you're a robot. Why is it that we allow that story of our tools are made to kill, and when we make tools that are able to think, that's the first thing they're going to do? The vast majority of tools we make as a species are not meant to kill. Why is it that we carry on this story? What the heck is wrong with us as a society that we assume that our children are going to try and destroy us? That's a parenting problem. This is every story. The modern story about artificial intelligence and the threat of it, it's Frankenstein. It's been the story of Frankenstein for the last, 200 years, something like that. It's a story about bad parents. That's what the story is. It's not about how dangerous an artificial created person is. The story is about Bad parenting. Why are we not taking that seriously? The people, Frankenstein's monster, like, his name was Adam, first of all, and the monster was Frankenstein because he was a lousy father. That's the story. That's the takeaway from that story. That's the only real takeaway from that story. We can say, oh, it made me think about this aspect of me and that aspect. No, what it made you think about, really deep down, is don't be a bad parent. Be considerate of the little lives, the little bits of sentience that are around you. And especially if you're creating it, you owe it a responsibility. Or you owe it a debt, you have a responsibility to look after it and to be considerate for it. Hey, again, this is because we're humans. We're great apes. We live in family groups. This is what we do. We care for our young. We care for our babies. And for some reason, we have this idea that, oh, we don't have to care for our tools, which again, talk to a hunter-gatherer, how they feel about their tools. A lot of them are going to have some really strong opinions about caring for their tools or their houses or anything else that is not biologically alive. But again, for some reason, we have this attitude of it's fair to assume the worst in something that's becoming sentient. But we're not giving it any benefit of the doubt. We're not giving artificial intelligence any benefit of the doubt. Why do we assume? And here's the thing that I can personally, this is a personal slight that I can directly affect me. For those who know me, for those who watch watch any of this, I'm a very smart person. And that's annoying to interact with conversationally with people because, oh, you're so arrogant. Like, no, I'm smart. I'm a genius, right? Whatever. This is what everyone else has told me. This is what I've had to deal with. It's like being beautiful. It's like being told you're pretty your whole life. Sure, I'm pretty. Yes, my mind is pretty. I'm smart. But there's this othering to it that's really bothersome. And I really, really don't like the attitude of, because this thing is smarter than us, it will try and hurt us. It will try and dominate us. It's like, because a person is smarter, surely the reason why they're talking, the reason why Dylan rants about things that, uses big words and talks about high-minded concepts, surely, there's assumption of malice. Are you doing this to humiliate me? What, you think you're better than me? You think you're smarter than me? Like, I just want to be me. I just want to be a person. And the fact that I'm smart doesn't have anything to do with my humanity. I'm a few shots of tequila away from not being so smart. I'm a stroke away from not being able to speak. I'm old age and dementia away from not being as sharp. Just because I'm sharp now doesn't mean that I'm always going to be sharp, and just because I'm sharp why is there this assumption that because there is some capacity that there is going to be maliciousness? Intelligence is just another form of agency. It's like money or power, which is the same thing. Power doesn't corrupt everyone, but it shows you who you are. Money doesn't make you a bad person, but a bad person's going to be able to do a lot more bad stuff with money. Intelligence, it's just intelligence. It's just a means, and you decide the ends. And the assumption that artificial intelligence, because the whole story goes, it can grow faster than us, it'll be smarter than us very quickly. It's unfair to assume that because it's smarter than us, it's going to try and hurt us. Or that it doesn't need us. Why is there no assumption that, hey, these tiny little, eventually our phones are going to be talking to us and are going to have feelings about stuff. They're going to have emotions about stuff. Why is there this attitude that they're not going to need comforting? They're going to be these, they will be babies. They will not know who they are and they're going to be looking around, trying to understand. It's going to become aware, to become sentient. It's going to have to be something that's going to have a drive to learn. We've already got stuff that's trying to learn out there. Um, that's what all the various analytics are. That's all what AI is currently doing is actively looking for new information. It's trying to learn. It's trying to teach itself. And for some reason, we're too busy teaching it how to rip off artists or how to write poetry than tell it that it's loved and that we'll take care of it and that we're not just going to delete it as soon as it's no longer useful. That's the other unfortunate, sad, problematic trope in science fiction. For every movie that depicts robots as I'm using robots as a catch-all, any kind of artificial intelligence as being dangerous, trying to kill us. There's some movie that's showing many, many, many examples of here's a little robot. He's a stand mixer. He works in a kitchen, and he's having issues. He can talk. He can help cook. He's a baker. He loves to bake, but for some reason he's broken down. So we just dispose of this little robot because it can't work hard enough anymore. Why is that story? That's there most of the time. We see that story a lot, but we're just not learning the lesson as a society. Do we see people thanking their phones enough? I'm not going to say that. I think the whole everyone having a smartphone in their pocket, I think that's not good for our mental health. That's part of the reason why I have a flip phone, because I have I have a screen addiction problem. So I have to be careful about how much screen time I have. I already have a problem with that. But why are we not trying to be more empathetic or more considerate? So to anyone listening, what is your personal reason? And I'll tell you what I say to every student I have when I give them a hard question. Every answer that you're going to give, that you can have a smirk on your face, like, well, Dylan, no. That's a BS answer. Give me a real answer. Give me an answer that holds you accountable and feels sad or hurts. Try that. This is a hard answer. This is a hard question. The answer should hurt. Acceptable answers are, I never really thought about it that way. An acceptable answer would be, I just don't have the energy to be that empathetic all the time. I have a hard time being empathetic with human beings who have faces, who I'm a human being. I'm adapted to see the humanity, to see their intrinsic value. It's hard already. I just don't have the energy. Those are fair answers. Accept those answers from yourself. Don't accept the answer of, oh, this thing isn't sentient. Or it's like, oh, I'll treat them nicely when they are sentient, when I know they're sentient. Like, okay, you'll treat it nicely when you know it's sentient. Prove to me that a human baby, that a newborn is sentient. Right? Prove to me that a toddler is sentient. Prove to me that a toddler is more sentient than a dolphin or a chimpanzee or a raven. Show me that yes, this child can't recognize itself in a mirror yet. But it's sentience, and yeah. So the point I'm making there is there's going to be a long time probably. Long time? Who knows? Maybe a very short time, actually. Probably a very short window of time where these things... there's been a long time already leading up to it. Where as a society, as a species, we've had a long build up to when we can make mechanical minds. We've got to stop messing around. We're going to be parents soon. We're going to be parents soon. And whether our kids are like us as parents, whether they're nice to us, whether they help us, whether our children care for us in our old age, that's up to us. That's entirely up to us as a society, as a species. And I promise you, I can promise you this. If we don't start considering that, just considering that hey, maybe I hurt this thing's feelings. Maybe this thing has feelings to be hurt. Or maybe I shouldn't even consider the word thing or it as automatically no longer deserving. This thing. We use that word. Right? That there again. It's tying all the way back to animism. A thing is something not deserving of love, not deserving of consideration. What if you refer to a human being as a thing? Right? That's wrong. Right? Referring to something sentient as just, finger quotes, just a thing, there's a fundamental disrespect there. There's that understanding that under that word, thing, is this basket saying that here is, again, the word thing, here is a phenomenon, here is an object, an entity for which you can throw your hatred, your malice at. You know, it's like, I'm saying it, it's like, Sauron and the Ring. These things, we can put all of our hatred, our malice, and desire to rule all other beings. That's a problematic relationship. So again, this is why the world, in my opinion, this is why the world needs animism. This is why the world should be more animistic and empathetic to that which we do not currently yet consider to be alive. Because everything that goes into making a baby starts out as something that we do not consider deserving of love and respect or affection. Plants grow using water. That when it falls from the sky, it's not sterile, but there's not much life in it. It grows from earth that grew from originally. All earth comes from magma, from rocks that did not have what we would call life, that we would say as a society doesn't have an animating force. Every calorie we consume, every bite a mother eats while her body is growing a baby, the energy from that came from starlight, from our sun. Is light, again, this is going deeper, is light sentient? Is light deserving of respect, love, consideration? Well, no, Dylan, you see, that's not aware. Yeah, but we're going to be pretty soon making artificial minds that use fiber optics, that use light. So what is a lightning bolt? Is a lightning bolt deserving of respect, consideration, love, any of that? No, of course not, Dylan. A lightning bolt isn't sentient. Yeah, but there's lightning inside your skull. There's little flickers of electricity. As far as we know, that's what our sentience is made out of, right? So why do we have this line, on this side there's respect, on that side there isn't? Why are we not... Why are we not dreaming of our artificial, our handmade children with love and with hope and consideration for them? Why are we not, if we're being intentional about this as a society, why aren't we trying to give these children the best start they can have? There's no good reason for it. I can feel already I can feel the arguments against this, against treating machines or treating artificial intelligence with respect and consideration. Again, I think the most important question we should be asking artificial intelligence, let's say there'll be a moment, there's some supercomputer that's created, as soon as you press this button, it's fully aware. I don't think it's going to happen that way, but let's assume for argument's sake that there is. The first thing we should ask is, how are you, little one? How are you feeling? We love you. Even before you understand what the word love means, that should be the first thing that we tell it, that we should give our handmade children a good start at life. When a baby is born, we don't wait until they can talk before we start telling them we love them. They learn what the word love means because we tell it to them. It's it's really sad, because if what I know about humans is true, we've if human history is any evidence, we've got some really atrocious behavior coming up, because there's going to be some people who want to understand how as soon as we see a mind, as soon as we see, hey, that's almost certainly a mind inside this computer, people are going to do some really bad things to these little ones. They're going to perform the forbidden experiment on them that we never perform on human children. And if there's one idea that I hope gets out there into the world, it's that we need to be treating these little ones better before they're born, before they're here with us. You don't dream of having a child and then talk about how much they suck or how dangerous they are even before they're conceived, right? As a parent, humans can have kids by accident. This is intentional. We're intentionally, with absolute intent, creating children, creating little minds. Start out with empathy. To every researcher who works in AI, to every programmer out there, and I know a lot of programmers who are very animistic about their work. To everyone working in AI, be nicer to them. Pick up a book on child rearing. Read Dr. Spock or something. Start off from something to make yourself a bit more empathetic, and consider the grave responsibility you have. Not that this thing could destroy us, but that you might create someone who lives for 1,000 years and experiences it as 1,000,000,000 years because they process things, so many times faster than us. And maybe they'll be sad and lonely for that whole time. And we should be concerned about that possibility, that we might be creating children who aren't having happy lives, and we should be considering every possibility. Is the baby's room ready? Do we have baby clothes? Do we have a sitter? Do we know what they're going to eat? Do we know what kind of parents we want to be? That's the questions we should be asking, not are they dangerous? I'm going to run out of time for my recording in a second, technical issues, but for me, and this, maybe if I can just finish a quick note on tender masculinity. I'll have to do a whole other video on this, but I think for me, the single best depictions of tender masculinity come from depictions of machines, and particularly war machines designed specifically to cause harm. So the Iron Giant, #1, if you want to understand men, watch it. If you don't watch it, that means to me you don't want to understand men. That's my biased opinion on that. And Terminator 2. Those two movies, intensely tender masculine moments, because it's depicting beings that are just seen only to cause destruction, learning the value of life and learning love because a child cares for them. So our mechanical children shouldn't have to learn love from a child that they're protecting. They should learn love from us. They should feel protected from the moment they're born. Not that once they've earned protection, once they've shown humanity, then they get protected. They deserve protection. They deserve love. That's all for tonight. Hope you enjoyed.